Today on Top Gear Rearview, I don't think Sir Ranulph Fiennes would have any of our either. And he's having none of their in that episode.
No, he is not.
And you know what? He's kind of having none of his here in this episode either.
Hello and welcome to Top Gear Rearview. I'm Jeff, that's Brady. Today we are looking back at Series 4, Episode 9.
This episode aired on the 25th of July in 2004, and the star in the reasonably priced car was the total badass Sir Ranulph Fiennes.
Oh, he is such a man. That sounded a little minty. So, segments tonight, we're looking at two-seater roadsters, starting off way outside the segment with an SL600, and then going to more reasonable Fiat Barchetta, Toyota MR2, and the Mazda MX-5. The challenge is parachuting into a moving car, which I don't know why you need to, but cool. Another convertible segment, this one just titled Convertibles, with the Mini Cabrio, the Vauxhall Tigra, the Mercedes-Benz SLK, and the Audi S4. The oddball review of the Jaguar X-Type estate and apparently skiing behind it. And then a very kind of tacked on power lap at the end just to get one in of last week's CL65 AMG.
Yeah, I guess it almost is like they didn't have enough time to do that last episode. Yeah. The last episode was pretty boring. I don't know how they did
lied.
That time.
It was 2 episodes ago.
Okay, but still.
Yeah, well, the other car in that episode was the Spiker C8. Way more interesting car, but I digress.
Yeah.
So we start things off weird. Like I said, they pull out the SL600, which isn't that different from the CL65. 6-liter V12, twin turbo, 93,000 pounds, etc. And they kind of basically say, like, it's an awesome car, and then you take the roof off, and that takes away 75,000 pounds worth of value, which I didn't fully understand.
Well, I mean, I guess what they're saying is to get the full enjoyment out of a car like that with the roof down, you do not need 75,000 pounds worth of V12 underneath it.
I can agree with that, but still, like, I mean, that's basically saying it's, what, an 18,000 pound roadster? Which I guess that puts it right at the MX-5 and the MR2, so
that's
all right.
Almost the whole point of the segment, really, is for them to say, once you put the top down, you might as well just buy an MR2 or whatever.
As a human that has owned an MX-5 or 2,
or 3.
I'd take a V12. I've only owned 2, Brady. Calm down. I guess 1.5 now. Threw half of one away. Mm-hmm. V12 would be awesome. I'm already looking at engine swaps for mine. But anyway. So into the meat of the review, we're looking at the NB generation Mazda MX-5. I guess I'm trying to figure out. I think it's the 3rd gen MR2, and the Fiat Barchetta, which I believe was only one generation.
Did they come out with one later?
No, there's only the one. It's they said that
it was available and then it wasn't, and now it is again.
Yeah, and this funny enough is the last year of the production, because presumably this is 04. These are all going to be 05s, 05 model years.
Yes,
and that's the last year of production for the Barchetta.
Yeah,
yeah. Do you know what Barchetta means in Italian?
Noah Rufa.
Little boat.
Little boat. Okay.
Yeah.
Little boat.
Which I can see that. Yeah. No, not Noah Rufa. Rufagana.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is just a classic Top Gear. Have Richard drive around in 3 things and then talk about a little bit in the studio. There really wasn't a lot of pizzazz to this. It was lacking pizzazz.
It was I mean, he pointed out some good things, like the MX-5. That the NB is not all that different from the NA, which is the 1st gen. It is the 1.8 liter, so the latter half of the 1st gen, with a few tweaks by this point, but still very similar to all the way back to the 1990 model year. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the MR2 really doesn't have a trunk. Truly not a lot of storage in that. I was looking at that when I was shopping for this particular segment, but a very good engine. I hear they're really hard to work on because they're mid-engine.
Yeah, I mean, it makes things a lot more difficult.
They're all just shoehorned in there. And the Barchetta I know like nothing about, but okay.
Yeah, the MR2, I feel like this generation, we call this the 3rd generation, is, in my mind, it's an S2000 kind of competitor. Those are the range that you're looking at, the Honda S2000 in this generation. But the generation before this, which they called,
I think it's the W20.
The W20. It I don't know. there's something about it that just makes it look like, I guess maybe it's probably because of the timing and stuff. It's practically a Supra. Like you look at that and you go, oh man, it just looks like it looks a lot meaner. It looks a lot faster. It looks a lot more put together. The W30 MR2 looks a lot like it just kind of warbles around a little bit.
It looks a little too happy.
It looks like a Miata. I mean, frankly,
it's not intimidating. It doesn't, well, because the W20 is more of a Targa. So it had more of the, like, I mean, even with the top down, like it had a more aggressive, more like I'm a sports car kind of stance. In the W30, it's like you take that top down and it's just kind of like woo woo woo.
Yeah, the W20 is a sports car. The W30 is just that little happy-go-lucky go-kart. Almost, it looks like it really. I mean, for all the places in my heart for the old MR2, the new one is just completely forgettable.
Yeah,
I don't like.
I like them both myself.
I like the older ones a lot better.
I think they're fairly good cars all around.
I would not buy a W30 MR2.
Interesting. I totally would.
No, I would not.
Mid-engine. I mean, regardless of happy face, I like.
I would buy an MX-5 before that for sure. Or
what about
Miata.
the Barchetta?
No, I don't think I'd buy a Barchetta.
You don't want a front-wheel drive boat?
It's little.
You know what I did like?
There's literally nothing about this Fiat that I enjoy. I don't like
I like the center high mount stop lamp, the Chimsel in the middle of the trunk, just kind of like boop. That's about it.
I don't like anything about the way it looks. I don't like the front wheel driveness. I mean, it honestly looks like a boat. It looks like a inflatable pontoon dinghy thing that you can buy at Costco.
I bet if you hit the water fast enough with that, it would hydroplane for a bit. It's got a nice little, like, the front doesn't like drop down and stop. It like scoops back under, so you got a little bit of a hole.
Yeah, sort of a hydroplane going on there. And
yeah.
Right up on the rake.
I do believe Hammond ends up just basically agreeing with what we're saying here, which is that, the MX-5, it's just so good. And it really is, and that's why it still exists today. So none of the other ones do, so...
Yeah, he says, he calls the Barchetta more stylish. And my comment is... Barchetta, you ain't got no alibi. You ugly. Yeah, you ugly.
He called it rare, and that's just because they didn't import it for a few years. And he did say I think his favorite thing was that one of the colors you could get it in was shiny gray.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the Barchetta. He did say the one plus it had was like 5,000 to 6,000 pounds cheaper, which is a considerable amount. But I would still pay more for the MX-5. I don't think I'd buy either of the other two.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I looked at like I said the MR2, but MX-5's the car to have. So, agreed, Mr. Hammond.
Hammond also says about 2-seater convertible roadsters that
this type of car, then, is in our blood. And as is often the way with these things, today the best British roadsters are Japanese.
And I find that to be extremely funny.
Yeah, I like that. I like that they had no British competitors in this little segment. So weird little challenge, I suppose.
It's just a small challenge. These challenges that don't include the guys are so forgettable.
They are. There's
I want to see them doing it. I want to see them doing a race or buying a car for a cheap amount or something.
Can May parachute into a moving car?
I want to see May parachute into a moving car. The only thing not forgettable about this segment was the fact that the driver of the car was the Stig. Was it Ben Collins?
It was Ben Collins. I was not paying enough attention. Okay.
They call him
that makes
Ben.
More sense. They do call him Ben. I just didn't even think about it.
That's the second appearance of Ben Collins on Top Gear so far, if you don't count any of the Stig appearances.
Sandbagging bastards.
I know. Yeah, I mean, it turns out if you practice a lot, it turns out
you can do it. And then you can rip big donuts for funsies.
Yep.
Well, that makes more sense that he was ripping donuts now, because I was like, oh, well, I guess they did say race car driver Ben, but yeah. Can you parachute in a moving car? Yes. Moving on.
Yes. Before we move on, Jeff, I can't help but bring up the fact that all of the music in this segment was all Lord of the Rings again. It was all Lord of the Rings, especially for the time when one of the times when I think when he's doing his first like twirling dive down while he's parachuting. It's the song that is playing when they're lighting all of the lighthouses from Osgiliath to Gondor.
How do you know all these words?
Or sorry, from Gondor to Rohan, and it's the Gondor Calls for Aid one. Because I've seen those movies a lot of times. Also, it's extremely iconic music, Jeff.
I guess I'm
just super surprised that they got the rights to all of this movie soundtrack music.
It's all Howard Shore for what that's worth. That's all I got. There's 90 movements.
Yeah, I mean it's all orchestral, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
and the movies are like 45 hours long.
Yeah.
That's all. Just more Lord of the Rings music. I'm sure I'll bring it up in the future.
Yeah, just keep us tally. Are you keeping tally? Do we have a Top Gear Rearview Lord of the Rings music?
Yeah, so far it's 2 segments with Lord of the Rings music and 1 with Star Wars music.
Okay. All right.
Nerds. Let's speaking about Sir Ranulph Fiennes, Jeff.
He's pretty awesome. He's one of my favorite guests so far because he's just like a badass.
He just comes across as like a hard dude.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that it probably comes across a lot that way because he's talking about when he cut his fingers off, but just everything about him, he seems so nonchalant about it. I don't know if it's an act. I feel like he's being genuine.
I do too.
It's just not a huge deal to this guy. All of these unbelievable things that he's done.
Just, I do these things and that happens and okay.
He just like he's the first person to walk to both poles. Walking to the poles, which is insane. He's missing all sorts of appendages.
Yeah, just left and right. They've fallen off or been cut off or yeah.
This is his first of 2 appearances on Top Gear.
He does come back for the Polar Challenge, right?
Yep, he is their trainer in the Polar Challenge to get them ready for Arctic excursions, and he's having none of their in that episode.
He is not.
And you know what? He's kind of having none of the here in this episode either. I liked maybe the most favorite thing about this interview is at the very end after they talk about his time, he's like, "Can I go?
I'm leaving."
You notice that? He's like, he like talks to him. He's like, "Can I go?" And Jeremy goes, "By all means." And he just walks away.
Yeah, normally they just kind of stand there and talk for a minute and then they flash to whoever else is doing the next segment. But yeah, this time he just stands up and walks off.
He's like, "Can I be done with this now?
I'm done.
I have much more important things to do with my life."
One of my toes fell off. I mean, just a couple highlights. I really like the story about getting kicked out of was it the army?
He was not kicked out of the army. He was kicked out of the SAS back to the army.
That's
SAS
what it was.
Is like their special forces.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because he assisted in the demolition of a 20-foot dam erected for a movie that he was not so in support of. Yeah. Okay. Yep. It sounded like it went very swimmingly, and I liked his excuse too. He's just like, we know I got really good at it, so I knew how much you needed, and then I kept the extra.
You're trained to use as little explosive as possible, and I was very good at it, so I just kept it.
Yeah. The as a runner, I really did enjoy his story about the marathons too. He had a heart attack, correct?
Yes, he had a heart attack.
And had to double bypass
4 or 5 months before
he in 2003
did these things. Yeah,
and he did this is an official challenge called the Land Rover 7x7x7, and it is basically 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days.
Which is nuts. I mean, 7 in a row is stupid anyway. It's stupid, crazy, nuts. And with all the flying time in between.
Oh yeah.
Is crazy.
I mean, I'm assuming he's a good marathon runner. Like he's running in the neighborhood at like somewhere in the 3-hour range for a marathon. So plus sleep and transportation. I mean, he cheated a little. I'm looking at the races, and the Antarctica one was in the Falkland Islands, but he went Patagonia, Falkland Islands, Sydney, Singapore, London, Cairo, New York.
Those aren't I feel like that's not the most optimal route.
I kind of agree.
Like, he went from the Falkland Islands, I guess he's down in the southern hemisphere, to Sydney,
south.
to Singapore, but then Singapore to London, and
that's a hoof, and then back to Cairo.
Back to Cairo. Why wouldn't you do that in a different order? Like maybe the opposite order. And then to New York City, yeah.
It could always be races. I mean, there's only so many marathons they have going.
I mean, I guess I never really thought about the fact that it was actually I thought he was just like running 26.2 miles.
Yeah.
These are actually like sanctioned marathons he was in?
It seems like it for the most part. Yeah, reading through this, I think it was. I don't have full details, but I got to assume at least there was somebody else running out there with them.
He says in retrospect, I wouldn't do it again. It was Mike Stroud's idea. Apparently, Mike Stroud's the dude that goes along with all these things with him.
Mike Stroud, that son of a bitch. They said his doctor said he'd be fine as long as he kept his heart rate under 130. Which again, as a runner, like my half marathon, I'm typically running in the 160 range, like heart rate. So like 130 for me is basically like a brisk walk.
Yeah. So which means he completely ignored that advice and just did his thing anyway.
Just powered through and was like, it's gonna kick. Cool guy. I thought his lap looked faster than it actually was.
He only got a 151, which is kind of falling right behind the new average of 150.
Yeah, I was watching this with my wife, and like his lines were pretty good. I really think it was those last two turns because he came off in the second to last, and then he was kind of stayed off through Gambon, and I think he lost about a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds there. Because I said when I was watching my wife, I said minute 49.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true badass. I would say for the foreseeable future, the most badass guest they've had.
I don't know of anyone else who's going to be more badass than this guy.
Yeah, I got nothing. There's probably somebody, maybe. I don't know. This is hard to beat. And he's so nonchalant about his badassery.
I think that's what makes it. I mean, I don't know. Ginger Spice is on season 2 or episode 2 of season 5.
Jerry Halliwell is pretty badass. But
right. He's got 3 more episodes until he's dethroned. Let's move on.
All right. To Scotland?
To Scotland, and a lot of artificial Scottishness going on at the beginning of this one.
Oh yeah, what are the name of the islands? Because I wrote down something and I don't think it's right.
Lewis and Harris. I've seen it. I've seen it as just Harris. Like
I wrote Lewis and House, and I was like, that can't be right.
No, it's the Lewis, the island. I guess it's both. I don't know. I've only heard Harris. It's the 3rd largest island in the British Isles.
All right.
After Britain and Ireland, and then Harris.
Okay. They had some fun stats. They chose it because it was the lowest kind of concentration of convertibles on said island. There are 19 convertibles, which is hilariously low. Jumpers are just kind of your year-round attire, and
that's Scotland.
True. It just seems wet, cold.
It is. I lived on the East Coast, which I think is a lot less wet. But it's not terribly warmer over there because it's still in the North Sea. Mm-hmm. But on the West Coast, it rains a whole lot more.
Yeah, I can see that. Just catching those as they come in over the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So this was again to do a convertible comparison, and I don't really see the common thread of these convertibles, but
there really is none. There's no like the old ones or the previous segment, the MX-5, the MR2, and the Barchetta are small 2-seater roadsters. That's the segment they're in, and they're generally in the same segment, even though one of them's mid-engine, one of them's front-wheel drive, whatever. They're essentially the same car. This one is the Mini Cabriolet, so the Mini Cabrio.
Soft-top convertible.
Which is a soft-top convertible, barely 4 seats. Mm-hmm. The Vauxhall Tigre.
Hard-top.
Hard-top.
2-seater.
2-seater. The Mercedes SLK, which is 40,000-pound hard-top.
Is that a 4-seater? I think that's a 2 as well.
I think
because it had the air scarf.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
2-seater.
And then the Audi S4, 41K.
Soft top
4-seater, actual 4-seater.
It should really be kind of the Mini versus S4 versus kind of the SLK versus Vauxhall, but they're in totally different price segments. You could buy 3 of the Tigra for the price of the S4.
Yeah, it's a bit of a rough comparison here. Just go test some convertibles is essentially the segment, and there really was no direct comparison at all.
Not at all. It was interesting. I mean, there were the Mini's the Mini, whatever. It's heavier. They took it to a shepherd who said it's a lady's car.
Do you want this car? No, thank you. I think it's a ladies' car. I think you know it.
It's a grandpa's guitar. Honestly, the Tigra, like as they showed that, the more and more I was like, that's kind of an interesting car. And Hammond was kind of in the same boat. Like this is a unique one, and I like it.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Yeah, I think it definitely had its pluses and its minuses. Minuses being a Vauxhall, but I liked it better than the Mini, I think.
I agree. It's it was unique. It does have that kind of that stereotypical like kind of long, tall back of the folding hardtop, but the hardtop was cool. I mean, it kind of looks. I want to say it's the Chevy XR2 or X. It's some weird little like almost the weirdest little American car that was kind of looked like it was trying to be a truck, and I don't remember if it was actually a convertible, but it had that kind of shape.
Yeah.
This, I believe, has a similar shape, but it is much more pleasing.
Yeah, so it's almost like there's two different comparisons going on. So between the Mini and the Vauxhall, I think it seems like we're both kind of coming down on the Vauxhall side.
Completely
Not saying that we generally enjoy these cars over other types of better cars. I don't think I'd take either of these over the MX-5.
Agreed.
So and then the next comparison is the SLK versus the S4. Which one of those would you like better?
Probably the S4, but I don't know. The SLK is not bad.
I think the S4 looks a bit ungainly. It looks super heavy, but it's easily the most practical out of all of these.
Well, it's like the one.
It's also the most expensive.
I wouldn't take that version of it. Give me the S4 Avant. Give me the wagon, and we're in business.
Yeah. S4 Avant would be the bee's knees. Yeah, exactly. They might as well just compare it out. The S4 Avant versus the Vauxhall Tigre or Tigra.
Yeah.
Versus, I don't know, a Ford Ranger. That's how disparate these cars were. I think 41K is asking a lot.
It is.
For the price of that car.
It's a big, it's the S-Line. It's the 4.2 liter with 344 horsepower. Not at all. It's a proper V8. That's the other thing is these things were all over the place. You had like little 4 cylinders and then a big V6, 3.5 liter, and then a bigger V8.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was a bit of a mess, man. It was a bit of a mess.
It just seemed like they got like they had to come up with some sort of common thread, or some manufacturers just shipped cars to the Isle of Paris, and they were like, what do they have in common? Tops come down. Let's go.
They just left off the other ones that didn't have the tops.
Yeah, they had 7 cars. Only 4 made it on TV.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this holds true with other early Top Gear segments. We'll see if they go back to the Isles of Lewis and Harris, and it's like a comparison of 2 like estates or something like that.
Yeah. They kind of ended things by talking about how they had some issues with the SLK, both the one they took around the track earlier and the one there. They said I think Jeremy blew an engine maybe on the track.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like they blew a gearbox, and when trying to move the electric seats, just the electronics went haywire.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The perception that I feel that Mercedes has is like that of Lexus, where it's expensive and it's nice, but you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
It's what you expect out of a German company. But that really is not what it seems to be, not only what they're saying in this segment, but the prevailing sentiment around it is things are going wrong and they don't seem too surprised by it. They don't say, well, I feel like I shouldn't be doing this because it's a Mercedes. Like they're just like, it's another
electrics
build quality issue from Mercedes. Ho hum.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't
that was surprising to me as well.
As you do for that sort of quality.
Yeah.
They kind of shift at the very end here into the cool wall, Jeff.
They do.
So let's disagree with them real quick.
Deal. They had both Minis on there. They had Mini uncool, Mini Cabrio cool. The Mini had moved down from cool, but let's just put those both in seriously uncool.
Yep, just shift them all the way to the left. Yeah. Fiat Barchetta.
Where'd that end up? I don't recall.
I don't remember either.
I think it was cool, but we'll push that one to at least uncool.
Yeah. Then they had the
Forodoro.
The Maserati Forodoro. Seriously cool? I would agree. I think that's a cool car.
Give it cool.
Seriously cool. I like seriously cool. I think it's really good.
All right. They had the C-Max, which they stuck on an audience member.
Seriously uncool, Jeff.
Seriously. As well as the Corolla.
Do you agree? C-Max.
If you say owner, I'm going to call you out. This is Possessor.
A C-Max legal guardian.
Yeah, not a cool car.
The Toyota Corolla Verso, which is funny after our Japan top-selling cars in Japan's talk we had the other day.
Was that on that list?
Yeah.
What did they do the minicabs in? That was the Renault Scenic. See, I thought that I was like, that's not the one they did, because they had the C-Max, but I didn't think they had the Corolla Verso.
No, it's just some other car.
All right. Like, we brought this one here.
This is in our stack of pictures. We might as well throw some Velcro on it.
Also seriously uncool.
Yep, and then Ford GT, I understand why they put it there, because he owns one.
Yep.
But that should have gone in the DB9 lockbox.
Oh, I passed the DB9 lockbox. DB9's cool. The DB9 they showed during the maybe news. I don't think they had news. They just showed a picture of a DB9. Maybe it's next episode in Racing Guys.
It's next episode.
Yeah, that one I can see next to the Ford GT.
Mm-hmm.
It looks so good.
It looks really good.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what this segment was for, aside from showing that, yep, they like Jaguars.
I mean, it's
a Mondeo.
It was not the Mondeo.
I know. Well, wasn't it?
No, it was the X-Type.
Yeah, but it was built on a Mondeo.
Oh, okay, whatever.
It's the same chassis.
Yeah. The point of this segment, that's the second time I've done that. The point of this segment, I think, was to let you know, Jeff, as the consumer, that estate versions of cars hold more things.
That is
than
true.
Not estate versions.
I agree wholeheartedly with that factual observation.
Also, four-wheel drive cars do better in inclement weather than non-four-wheel drive cars.
Yeah.
That I did not see a huge.
If you start a rear-wheel drive van on a hill, you'll spin the tires in the snow.
I'm gonna file that one away for a rainy day and bring it out at a cocktail party sometime. Yeah, no, it's just it was an I guess a funny-ish way to show that estate cars can hold all your stuff and can do well in inclement weather, which apparently they had that winter. This did not air in the winter. This aired in July, so it was a little out of date.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're kind of showing off the fact that the Jaguar does okay in the snow, or what I would call light frost on the roads. But I guess it was interesting. They had a video. I don't know if they took the video of like a legitimate crash.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
like a Renault just like went off the road, almost smashed into another car. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, you know the another video thing they showed was Jeremy racing a skier down a ski hill in an X-Type sedan all-wheel drive. Was that on a previous episode? And I'm already forgetting it.
No.
Where did that come from? Because that was like, this looks so much cooler.
I think it came from old Top Gear.
It must have. Okay, because it didn't look that old. But yeah, I guess if it was like a previous Top Gear, I mean, the X-Type was around for a while. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been. I wish I could have watched that. He did ski behind this, like you do. You play hooky bob. You know.
Yeah. I mean, he was getting towed by a car on a road, an open public road, presumably, because cars are driving the other way.
Yep.
He was just getting pulled, and like I guess the point of it was that it was pulling him up a hill, so he turned around and go down the hill. But it's not really a hill; it's just a flat road. So he didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Apparently, in all of his fastidiousness of loading up everything in the back of his estate to go skiing up a hill, he did not load ski poles.
Or the hill.
Or touche. But yeah, I mean, I guess he gets pulled behind it, and four-wheel drive cars do okay in the snow, Jeff.
Yes, they do.
Let's move on to an even shorter segment.
Super power lap, quick time, go. CL65 AMG. How fast? Not very fast.
So 2 episodes ago, they reviewed this car and talked a lot about how it was the most powerful car in the world. And we were waiting. I think we both said we were both waiting for them to put around the track, and they even kind of teased you with it. It says, we really need to see how fast this thing is, and we're like, all right, so it's gonna go around the track.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we're gonna do it we're gonna put it in a drag race against a bunch of stuff that's less powerful than it.
Yeah.
And it was such a letdown. But apparently it just came back, and we were just saving it for 2 episodes from now to fill some time. So yes, the Mercedes-Benz CL65 AMG finally did its lap We're not going to talk a lot about it. You can go listen to Season 4, Episode 7.
Yep.
If you want to get a review of that car or our review of that segment.
It's expensive. It's 141,000?
145,000 pounds.
Okay.
It has
Balls loads of torque.
738 torques and 600 and something horsepower.
It has 1,000 torques if you use the right metric.
Yeah, 1,000 Newton meters of torque, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's extremely powerful. So they just wanted to see how it did around the tracks, and turns out not that great, Jeff.
Nope, 129 dead.
Which is slower than a lot of things. Slower than the Spiker that they reviewed in that exact same episode by 2 seconds.
Which is 11,000 pounds cheaper.
Yep. 145 is a lot of pounds.
Many.
But they did put it around track. We gone through the stats, so let's do some desirability. Jeff, go.
I'm going to give it a 3.
Ooh, okay. I'm at least going to give it a 5.
Oh, no. It's cool, but it's just so expensive. Like, I cannot justify this car in my mind unless it's under 10 grand used somehow.
I like the big engine. It's a good point. It's very expensive.
The big engine came in different cars, though. That's the thing. Is like I think it came in the S600. There were a few other Mercs that came in that I would take before this one.
Okay, that's a good point. Touche. It's bad. This is bad. This is an overall Top Gear Rearview power ranking score of 94.02.
Ooh, that is bad.
Putting it 53rd out of 61.
All right, 8 from the bottom.
So it is. It's a no good.
Yeah, it was not expected to be no good. That's not what it's for. It's not for going fast. I don't know what it is for, but
yeah, 53rd is just ahead of the Ferrari the 575M Maranello. Just behind the Ferrari 575M Maranello and just ahead of the MG ZT260, which was a relatively slow car that was too expensive as well.
Yeah,
so
that'll do it. I mean,
that's we're sitting in the extremely expensive range right now, I think.
Again, just swap the engine between this and the Spiker and see what happens.
It's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
All right. That's a bad car.
Bad car.
This was I didn't find myself really bored during this episode. I liked watching the parachute dude go into the car, but it really doesn't translate well to the podcast.
No, it's this will be a shorty, and that's all right. But if you watched it, we have had worse episodes recently, and we have worse episodes coming up, surely. They are getting into their stride, but this is definitely kind of in the last the end of Series 4, where they're like, we got a few other things we got to just kind of smush in.
Yes, exactly. We appreciate you listening with us. If you'd like to watch along with us, I believe Season 2 through 17 are available on Amazon Video and free if you are a Prime member. We are in no way affiliated with Amazon or Amazon Prime, but it is a great way to watch it and listen to all that sweet, sweet Lord of the Rings music.
Yeah, it's good music, man. We do have a couple other web presences. If you'd like YouTube as a more useful form of listening to the podcast, we do put the podcast up there. We also have a Facebook page that we actually do have video up there if that works for you to listen, or we post regular article updates. We had some interesting ones this week. Matt LeBlanc is leaving the current as of, I guess, what is today? June 3rd, 2018, the current iteration of Top Gear, and that's we'll see where that leaves him, because he's kind of the lifeblood of the show at the moment. So yeah. But you can find us on there, just searching Top Gear Rearview on Facebook.
That's it, I think, man.
So I think that wraps us up. So on that note, we'll see you back here next week to wrap up Series 4.